Amen. Hallelujah. And blessings in Jesus' name. Now, in this video, well, first I'm going to read a chapter from Proverbs, but then I'm going to move on to another book, okay? So, I'm going to go from chapter 4 of Proverbs. Maybe 5. I just want to have a look. I'll start with 4. Hear ye children the instruction of a father, and attend to know understanding. For I give you good doctrine, forsake ye not my law. For I was my father's son, tender and only beloved in the sight of my mother. He taught me also, and said unto me, Let thine heart retain my words, keep my commandments, and live. Get wisdom, get understanding, forget it not, neither decline from the words of my mouth. Forsake her not, and she shall preserve thee. Love her, and she shall keep thee. Wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom. And with all thy getting, get understanding. Wisdom is the principal thing. Because, I've said it many times, you can have lots of intelligence, but if you do not have wisdom such that you can properly implement your intelligence, then you fail. So wisdom has to be the principal thing. It has to be first, so that when you attain knowledge, you know how to properly implement that knowledge. Now, conscience, men are sort of born with a degree of wisdom. It's called conscience. But the world tends to sear that so that we can no longer relate to it or interface with it on the proper level, so that we gain wisdom, understanding from it, and can properly implement our knowledge through it. So remember that it is the principal thing, wisdom, and plenty of it contained in the book of Proverbs. But isn't it interesting how we're not pointed to wisdom first in life? They tell us that wisdom is something that comes with age. What, so you have to spend your life making mistakes? You didn't have wisdom? That would be disastrous, and is, for many people. Look at that one. Wisdom should be the first thing you look for, so that when you interface decision-making situations where options are presented before you, you know how to proceed and conduct yourself in all matters. But of course, the enemy of your life would want you to acquire knowledge, because knowledge is power, right? But you can't implement that knowledge properly unless you have wisdom. Satan doesn't want you to get the wisdom of God. He wants you to get the wisdom of man. A cleverness to do evil. A cleverness to think about yourself and try to opportunistically climb upon others and saddle them for your ends. And that's where Satan wants you. He wants you thinking that you're knowing something and somebody else is not knowing it is your advantage. Not necessarily. I mean, it might help you play the game of this world, but it won't help you ultimately. You won't become wealthier as a person because you're not implementing proper understanding. So you're not prioritizing or fully enjoying the things that human beings can enjoy most. You're only going through the motions. So wisdom being the principal thing. Wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom first. And with all thy getting, get understanding. So it's not saying neglect understanding. It's not saying neglect knowledge. It's saying wisdom is principal. So, moving on. Exalt her. Wisdom in the feminine. Isn't that interesting? How the woman is a help to man, and so is wisdom. Exalt her, and she shall promote thee. She shall bring thee to honour when thou dost embrace her, like a beautiful woman, if her head screwed on. She shall give to thine head an ornament of grace, a crown of glory shall she deliver to thee. Like a beautiful woman, assuming she has wisdom as principle. she shall give to thine head, again, an ornament of grace. She shall even enthrone you as a king. She is to you your queen, that uplifts you and helps you. Exalt her, and she shall promote thee. She shall bring thee to honour when thou dost embrace her. Men don't realise that a woman is there to enthrone you. She will put you in your throne. She's wise. She has innate wisdom. She teaches the baby. She teaches the toddler. She teaches the young. She must have something innate that society has neglected to tell you about, so that you wouldn't give her the due respect. Exalt her, and she shall promote thee. She shall bring thee to honour when thou dost embrace her. She can't do all that if she's busy at work because the man isn't getting paid enough. See how Satan's attacking your house? He is plundering your house. He's running swords through your children, your dog, your wife, the whole lot. He is bombarding, marauding, raping and pillaging the village, and they don't even know it's happening. Because he's dividing them by policies and failure to implement the systems that your ancestors knew worked and therefore enshrined. And they're just avoiding the conversation and relying on your ignorance. They're weak and beggarly elements. Wisdom is not at the helm there, but they've no lack of intellect. So go figure. Exalt her, and she shall promote thee. She shall bring thee to honour when thou dost embrace her. So you are to a woman like the sunlight is to a flower. Why wouldn't she exalt you? Wisdom is to you as sunlight to a flower. So there's a symbiosis there. There's a symbiotic relationship with man and woman, so long as they are honouring each other and acknowledging that just because they have different roles doesn't mean that they have different values. Like worth. Or like a value system, that's sometimes a different worth. So you're worth this and you're only worth that because you're the woman, or you're only worth that because you're the man. That's not how it works. They have different roles symbiotically supporting one another and feeding one another as your body feeds all its members. It doesn't feed your legs and neglect your arms. It feeds all of the body. And so the blood has to travel through every member of the household, of the body, which is the fundamental family unit of society. So now we have all of this being innervated, oxygenated through the vascular system, and so respirated venously, oxygen travelling through. Yeah. So all of those systems of communication need to be open. If the lines of communication aren't open, somebody's trying to cut you off from the body. So when your government is telling you to be ignorant, they're trying to cut you off from your constitution, because they don't want you to have any expectation that the enshrined fundamental preservations of the infrastructural well-being of the nation for the purposes of the common good, the upholding of the household, and the woman in her role, and the man in her role, and the children in their role, and everybody in their proper role for the purposes of innervation, oxygenation, and all of the different types of nourishment and transportation of those nutrients around the body. All of that has to be systematically ensured, and that boils down to an economic provision, because we use economy as our fundamental form of communicating a value. So if the fundamental form of communicating a value isn't in place, what's happening? Somebody's trying to cut your limbs off. You're under attack. Somebody's trying to cut you off. If people aren't talking to you, they've cut you off. They intend to sever you. They intend to remove you as somebody would remove a gangrenous leg. But what happens when the head is gangrenous? The government. When the government is gangrenous, when the head is gangrenous, you're in big trouble. And that's the alarm I've been raising for this nation as God's servant. That your government is telling you to be ignorant, and that is them cutting you off from your constitution, because they're saying be ignorant of the constitution. Presume things constitutional. Don't know them to be, presume them to be, and it's whatever we tell you, and we don't have to check if it's constitutional or not. That is the head trying to sever the entire body from the constitution that put the head there in the first place. You see what they're at now? They're madmen. They're trying to cut you off from everything that is a well-functioning system. Why? Satan wants to target the children and give them a world where wrong is right and right is wrong. That's why. He's coming after your house, and I'll fight him. He's coming after your house, trying to lead you to submit to wayward officials who are implementing his will. He's getting into them and talking through them. Bop, 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 bop. Presumptively constitutional. Waffle. You can't presume something and know it, so you either know it or you don't. There's no third option. It's either constitutional, unconstitutional, no such category as presumptively constitutional. It's an NCT pass, an NCT fail. No such thing as a presumptively passed NCT. If it fails, you bring it to the mechanic, you fix the things that were failed, and you put it back through the test. It's even tested again, a second time. Well, now we have better systems of testing for cars than we do for our own constitution. Yeah. Why? Because it's topsy-turvy land. But the president is the custodian of the constitution. Yeah, he is, but apparently he hasn't prioritised his position. And he's just telling you, just whatever, presumptively constitutional. I can do Irish dancing. Oh, I like ballads. Me. Presumptively constitutional? What's that? Look at the leprechaun. Do you see what I'm saying to you? It's like, I like Ireland and Irish things. Presumptively lawful. You see what I'm saying to you? Lucky Charms. How about functioning arms of government? How about the president knows the Constitution? President knows. Because the role of the president is to what? Uphold the Constitution. How can he uphold a Constitution he doesn't know? Where's the president gone? He's out of the office now. Presumptively constitutional. Where's he gone now? I want to ask him about that. See what I'm saying? They cut you off. They say something, then they aren't around to respond. No media at this time. Oh, there you are. Presumptively constitutional. You see what I'm saying to you? So they only communicate down to you. You don't think you can communicate with the president of the country. He has 5 minutes for you. Imagine he had to have 5 minutes for everybody. It'd be unmanageable. What if I have a really, really pressing issue, like why is the president a criminal? Will I get an ear then? Or why is the president committing sedition? Heads up. Why is he committing treason? Why is he pretending that he doesn't know the Constitution and telling everybody else to pretend that whatever he allows into the legislature is constitutional and then claiming he hasn't checked? It's my job to uphold the Constitution. My job as President to test the bills before I add them to the legislature for their constitutionality. How will I get away with this? I know what I'll do. Legislate that I don't have to check whether they're constitutional or not. That'll render entirely this office void. Sleight of hand and twist of fate. Hold on a minute, lads. Sit and wait. Open your ears. The President, Michael D. Higgins, the Freemason, Freemasonry's wizardry, the synagogue of Satan. I know because I was one, and I left as soon as I realised what it was. Michael D. Higgins is custodian of the Constitution of Ireland. No, he's not. He's attacking it. How do I know that? That's a very strong claim. Yeah, I have evidence. He's telling you he doesn't have to check the constitutionality of bills that are presented to him. What? That's like a mechanic saying, I don't have to check your engine. But I can tell you it's to presume it's working after I charge you. So I have to pay you as a mechanic, like we pay the President as custodian of the Constitution. But the mechanic isn't going to test my engine. The President isn't going to test the constitutionality of the bill. But he's going to tell me that that's safe to drive and treat it as though the engine is working fine. But I didn't test it because I don't have to. Now give me your money. So the President is custodian of the Constitution. It's his job to uphold the Constitution. It's his job to implement it and make sure that all of the organs of state are doing the same thing by ensuring that nothing gets into the legislature which is unconstitutional. So it's unconstitutional if it hasn't been confirmed as constitutional. And that's the standard that has to be kept. It has to be rigorously tested by people who have studied constitutional law. And if that doesn't happen, then those people are criminals who are getting paid to do a job that they're actually not doing, but are leading people to have no certainty as to whether legislature is constitutional or not, but are telling them that they must pretend as though it is and behave towards those legislatures as though they were the law by obeying them as though they were the law. But we didn't check whether they're lawful or not. Do you see the point? The constitutionality of something is the lawfulness of it. The Constitution is the written law. So the lawfulness of the legislature is determined by rigorous testing. That only a person who is studied in constitutional law is given the responsibility of. But they're telling us, yeah, we know constitutional law, but we're not going to test this for its constitutionality. That's an impossibility. One who has studied in constitutional law can't suddenly forget everything they know and consider a bill for addition to the legislature. How do you consider a bill for addition to the legislature without testing it for its constitutionality? What's the consideration about? What are you considering exactly? Will we, won't we add this to the legislature? On what basis? So what are you considering about that bill? What they should be considering about that bill, according to the law and the very brief of their office, is the constitutionality of it. Fundamentally, it's the principal thing. As wisdom is to understanding, constitutionality is to legislature. If it cannot be shown as constitutional, it can't be legislature. What they're trying to do is aggressively, non-committally say, we haven't tested it, so we're not guilty. You haven't tested it, so you are guilty. It's not, even if you searched it out and found that it was constitutional, they'd still be guilty for not checking it. So it's the checking it out that is the prerequisite, not actually the constitutionality of it when it comes to the seat of president. The constitutionality of it is, of course, what needs to be tested, but the testing of it is vital. So it's the first thing to do. Whether it's constitutional or not is a result of what? Testing it. You see the point? So it has to come first. Why? Because the citizens have to have certainty that legislature is lawful, that they can obey it with good conscience, knowing that they're not fighting against their own laws or sabotaging the future of their children because now something in legislature fights against their fundamental rights, or at least the accessing of them, or the implementation of them, or the preservation of the common good and the health of the household as a unit together and not divided in their own areas, not really coming together, not really getting paid enough as the man, so the woman has to go to work, so she can't really be a mother, so that the children don't really get raised. So it's all this divisive, half-hearted, flippy, floppy, nothing. 50%, 45% of what it should be, with no excuse other than Freemasons got into government and failed to implement the law, so that they could claim the system doesn't work and implement their own scabbier system. It's an orchestrated collapse. It's an attempt to tell Irish people your system doesn't work, ours is better. See? How long have we been topping you up? They're not implementing the Constitution of Ireland, and that's why the failings are occurring. They're orchestrating the crisis. They work together behind the scenes. They are a secret society within societies. They're Freemasonry, a worldwide wizardry coven that has been there for centuries and has taken on many different names, many different guises, but are ultimately the synagogue of the devil. And their intention is to turn the world on its head functionally, morally, because they want you to burn in hell through disobeying the God that created you and failing systems for failure to put wisdom first. And wisdom will always tell you what well-functioning systems should look like. And if you're not going to obey your ancestors who implemented those well-functioning systems, you are effectively destroying and fighting against your own land. So presumptively constitutional, that very term is a cancer to this society. And it is sedition and treason, just the term alone, presumptively constitutional, because it's a lie. You cannot lack knowledge as to what the written law is. You make a presumption on the lack of knowledge. So why would the very president whose job it is to uphold the Constitution be leading you to ignorant compliance with things he claims he hasn't even tested for their constitutionality? Only a criminal would.